doing. Magnolia Fund is very much focused on a neighborhood in the East End of Houston. So East End is our very historic industrial commercial corridor. In Houston, we have the Port of Houston, and over the last 100 years or so, the neighborhood that is the East End, heavily Latino, Mexican-American immigrants from the 1920s on, and very blue collar, although the neighborhood is, in the last 15, 20 years, we've seen a lot of change. So we'll talk a little bit about the fund, and I'll tell you kind of why we got started, and really, as you can see, we're focused on investing in the neighborhood. As locals, being from a neighborhood that you see changing, the desire was, can we invest in our neighborhood and sort of hold on to some of that ownership, some of that equity in the neighborhood. And so for us, a commercial kitchen wasn't what we originally set out to do. We set out to create a fund that would invest in the neighborhood. Spoiler alert, obviously we're investing in a commercial kitchen, but I wanted to bring that up as sort of like, it's one of these things that I think over time we realized would be a wise investment. We'll talk about our capital stack. We took a private raise, combined that with a public raise or crowdfunding to be able to acquire, renovate, and get into a commercial kitchen space. And then of course why it matters. We believe that the future of economic development is local. The future of economic development should actually include the neighborhoods that the economic development is happening. That's kind of a wild idea, right? But I'll talk a little bit about that and why it matters to us. So I'll play this really quickly. It's easier to show you than tell you. So click on this. It was working earlier. There we go.
Every neighborhood creates wealth, but sometimes economic development can outpace the wealth of locals. New buildings, sidewalks, power lines, and even new jobs remain out of reach for longtime residents and small businesses. That wealth was never designed to flow back to locals. But what if we could change that? What if locals owned more of the income-producing assets in their neighborhood? That's the idea behind Magnolia Fund. We've made it possible for people to invest in the economic future of where they live, so that as a neighborhood prospers, locals can own and actually benefit from that progress. Here's how it works. Magnolia Fund is a real estate investment fund focused exclusively in the East End. While most real estate investments require large sums of money, you can invest in Magnolia Fund for as little as $100. Your investment means you become part owner in local commercial real estate, as well as the business concept we choose to develop. As you can tell, this is not just a real estate play where we're the landlord only. We're taking it a step further by developing an income-producing property that reflects the needs and character of the neighborhood. In this case, we're launching a shared commercial kitchen. It's an innovative concept, providing affordable commercial kitchen space for food makers. These are bakers, caterers, pop-up vendors, and other food-based entrepreneurs. The more successful the kitchen, the more valuable our real estate, and the sooner we can create returns for investors. As with any investment, this comes with a high level of risk. Full offering details, including risk factors, and how investors might see returns, is available on our website if you go to magnolia.fund and click the button that says Invest. Trust is the only currency that matters in the neighborhood, so we're committed to being upfront about things like transparency, accountability, and especially risk. At Magnolia Fund, we believe that when locals invest in their neighborhood, we're not just participating, but leading the way in our own economic future. It's progress the neighborhood can be proud of.
So let's see here. I'm sure there's a button to do that, but to present. Yeah. This is actually a great segue into the fact that for the last 25 years I've been in tech, obviously. I started a lot of companies, and in my time, we've had to raise from outside investors. And when you think about that, and if you want to do something in the neighborhood, our neighborhood, very Latino, very proud of where they came from. Outsiders, no, right? This new change, this gentrification happening, we're not afraid to say the G word, right? Like, it's a big deal. And so I put together what I believe sort of is our list of data points things that we believe that we wanted to utilize to build confidence in what we're doing, from the fund creation all the way to what we're investing in. And so if you think of this as columns, this first column, neighborhood change, is really, obviously what it says, but it's from a certain time period, 2014 to 2021. That you can think of as like, what are our observations? What is the current status of the neighborhood? The middle column, take inventory, is who are we? We really need to understand who we are, what our strengths are, if we're going to do something in the neighborhood. Otherwise, it's like Sun Tzu, right? Art of War. You may know your enemy, but knowing yourself is how you win. Catch the wave, third column, is really about what are the macro trends that relate to our stakeholders that we should be looking at as confidence builders, indicators that what we're doing is the right thing, or indicators that we'll be successful. So under neighborhood change, decline in the Latino population, 50% or so to 34%. Resident median income doubled, the median home value doubled. And so that is a big change in the neighborhood. When we talk about gentrification, there's displacement. So when the resident median income went up, doubled, it's not that everybody got a raise, right? It is that new residents have higher net worth. On the second column, take inventory, we had to look at who we were, what were our strengths. So if we have a decline in residents, well, how many residents do we have? We have about 100,000 residents in the East End. This is a 8 square mile stretch from Houston's downtown to our sort of bounding freeway, which is 610. And that stretch, that 8 square miles, there's about 100,000 residents. Well, even at the decrease, 34% of which, right, 34,000 are Latino or identify as Latino. Okay, this is a strength. So what do we have in the space? Well, we have actually 3,600 buildings. I'm on the board of the East End District, which is our management improvement district. So what we know is that we have commercial properties, and some of them this is over 7 million square feet of commercial space. Some of it's retail, restaurant, storefront, old warehouses. And so our idea was, can we take an old building, an underutilized asset, renovate it, and make it something that can be part of our fund to not give back to the neighborhood, but to create returns for investors. And those investors, if we can focus on people from the neighborhood, we are giving back to the neighborhood in a way. I bring up culture, and we put culture on here is because it is a strength. It is not just the buildings or the food. In our history, we actually have several food makers over the last 60 years. We call them food makers, but really they're food entrepreneurs who built their legacy on food. So Mama Ninfa's, whose claim to fame is she invented fajitas. Y'all have to check me on that. We have the Mandola's, Irma's, Champburger. I tried not to, but I go there probably once a week. Been there for 62 years. The world in which they started their food business no longer exists today. And so we looked at this kitchen as a way of saying, okay, how can we help this next generation of food entrepreneurs? And so when we talk about Catch the Wave, at the national level, Latino household wealth tripled. A little bit to do with the pandemic and how home values increased, and there was a gain in equity. But that means, at least for us, okay, that Latinos are starting to come up in the sense that, like, if we're targeting them, or if a big part of our target is Latinos, we need to understand what they're willing to invest in. 30% of Latino-owned investments, there was a 30% growth in Latino-owned investments. So these are investments in real estate that are not their home. Investors went from 7.3 to 9.5%. This is huge. This is a big growth in the investor base that we believe we could get. And then seeing indicators in the food space. So away from home purchases, it's an indicator we saw from, I believe, Flip created a report, 24, and that was from year over year, from 22 to 23, 9% growth. So for us, having confidence in what we're doing as a kitchen, it didn't just start with seeing the numbers. Really, we spoke to the community. There was a gentleman who I met with who had a kombucha brand, and he was fairly successful on store shelves in Whole Foods and all that. And in 2023, he told me, we need more commercial kitchen space. I said, oh, in the East End? He said, no, in all of Houston. We lose people to San Antonio, Dallas, Austin. We need more, not just infrastructure, but more support in terms of guidance and mentorship. And wouldn't it be cool if we did that? I didn't know what he was talking about at the time, 2023. We were very early in the process. But for the next 2 years, really, we kept that in the back of our minds and started learning more about the commercial kitchen space. A lot of our early investors were friends of mine, so I'll use that to talk a little bit about the capital stack. We started with people I knew either in tech or that I knew from the neighborhood. Some of those folks were super, if they were in tech, they were really interested in place-based investing. And they wanted to do something that was in their neighborhood. So all of our early investors on the local investor side were from the neighborhood. But I put in here things that I think are important when it comes to raising money. So close relationships, earned trust. So close relationships, like I mentioned, folks I knew already, but that earned trust earned over time, right? So these are folks who knew that I had a track record in tech, let's say, or I had a track record in being a community leader, so they were able to trust, right, what we were doing. And they were very much part of the mission formation. So they were mission driven in the sense that they helped create this mission. One of our earliest investors, our first investor into the fund was a buddy I grew up with. His name was Ox, we call him Ox, but his name is Marcelo Garcia. Ox was super passionate about investing in the culture. And so he wrote a big check so that the rest of the neighborhood can write small checks. We knew that we needed seed funding to create the legal structure to be able to offer a crowdfunding campaign. And so I bring this up because he was very much part of the mission, and so were the rest of our earliest investors. It was a higher barrier to entry, so they're larger checks. On the crowdfunding side, network effects, right? So some of our early investors brought along other additional investors, and then some of our, most of those folks inherited their trust from either that friend, or maybe they heard about what we were doing, and because of what we were doing, aligned with what they, again, mission aligned with what their values were, they would be willing to invest anywhere from $100 on up. So it's a low barrier to entry there. And then seller financing. So zero connection, but it's a sign of the times. When we were searching for a property, we spent about a year searching, and we spent the better part of that year really looking at all these properties in the neighborhood. You saw the commercial and had like a map. We were kind of focused on the middle of the neighborhood, and it was really because we want to be part of the neighborhood, we want to be ingrained in the neighborhood. And it was just dumb luck, to be completely honest, that we did not see that there was a commissary kitchen on the market for about a year before we found it. If we found it early, we would have paid a lot more for it. And the fact that we found it when we found it, it was at a time where we were like, we need to deploy capital, we need to invest in something, where are we, what are we doing? In fact, when we found it, we were like, wait a minute, this is exactly what we're looking for? We were almost suspicious of it. And so, turns out, zero connection to the seller, verified trust. They're like, send us your financials. Obviously, we didn't have, tax returns for more than maybe a year at that point, but they saw we had some money. Mission agnostic, they didn't care about the mission. I was hoping, after I told them, like, hey, better deal, better interest rate. But either way, it was something we could afford, and we knew we wanted to act on that. So for the seller, they need to increase their pool of who could be a buyer. And so that's, again, sign of the times. We got really lucky on that. And so, we'll do Q&A after Erwin's session, but I'll, happy to chat about that here in a second. One of those investors early was my buddy Ox, and Ox was a firefighter. When we launched our fund, it was this time last year, and at the same time, the day we were thinking about launching the fund, it was the week before actually, Ox was involved with fire, lost his life in the line of duty. So my co-founder passed, but I want to play this real quick just to kind of give you an idea when we start getting into why it's important.
I approached one of my childhood friends, and I told him that there was a lot of development happening in the East End, and wouldn't it be great if regular, normal, everyday people like us could also lead some of the development? And that became a conversation that turned into us in 2023 creating Magnolia Fund as a way for people that either from the neighborhood or have some connection to the neighborhood, or people who just love this neighborhood and want to be involved in the development that's happening. They can invest at any level. We created a fund to make that happen. And that thing we invested in, the culture, ended up being a commercial kitchen. Because as you know, food is big in our culture, but we also looked at it as a way to support local entrepreneurs who are in food, who are betting that food can help their generational wealth. We're going to be that support for those communities. I met Ox when I was probably just out of high school, just out of middle school. He introduced himself as Ox, and from that day, that's how I've known him. And so Over the years, went to movie together, got a chance to really get to know him more as an adult, really, because we had more time. And I think we also realized we were I guess we had similar aspirations. He started doing things in real estate and started becoming an investor, then he became a firefighter. And when we started the fund, he was so excited about it. He wanted to invest in the culture, as he called it. And in fact, he ended up being the very first check into the fund. And what I told him is, he, as well as all the other early investors, they needed to write big checks so that the neighborhood could write small checks. And that was super important to him. He wanted everybody to be able to invest. Obviously, with his passing, it was a huge hit for us, our friend group, his family, of course.
Marcelo Garcia III, local 341, Houston, Texas.
In late September, we attended a memorial in Colorado Springs, and it's the National Firefighters Memorial. It's a beautiful service. They basically, when a firefighter passes, they etch their name in stone right when it happens. And then later, every September, they have a beautiful ceremony. There were about 40 to 50 of us from the family and friends, but in terms of the Houston firefighters that came out, must have been about 300 of them. So it was an amazing thing to see and be a part of. And all the while, the community, basically, we asked the community if they could suggest names for the kitchen. One of those suggestions was Ox Street Kitchen. And the reason is because the street we're on is called Bueno. And when we went under contract on the property, I realized that we looked up the name, and Bueno was an old Gaelic word, an old Irish word for ox. So it was super fitting that someone suggested that name, and among the 30 in the entries, that one was voted the number one. And so we are announcing that the kitchen will be named in his honor. It'll be Ox Street Kitchen.
Very much. So as you can tell, the kitchen is super important to us. As a fund, we did not set out to create a kitchen, at least originally, but it became something that we learned about from the neighborhood. Small indicators from the data helped us understand, but really folks like this that we spoke to from the neighborhood, this is a group of, there's the top left, all of our investors and some of our investors and some of our community partners, some of our food makers. We had a proclamation from the city. It happened to fall on Ox's birthday, so we named it the Community Investment Day. And then the rest, these are all investors on the bottom left. We had a pre-opening party to just show everybody kind of the space. And then the friend group, there's a lot of us there, but just a group of friends that we all grew up together. So for us, of course, very important, the fund and how we, manage our fund, how we decided on a kitchen. Happy to answer Q&A here in a little bit, but I want to bring up Erwin.